Okay, so what I want to cover real quickly is the different solutions that I've used for FPV with the Phantom Vision 2 Plus. Um, Prior to getting the Zeiss goggles, which I'll cover in a second, I was using a Fatshark scenario. Now, this is the Vision 2 Plus, and although you see the antenna on here, there's a switch on the bottom of these goggles. These are the Dominator V1 goggles. There's a switch on the bottom here, and when you hit this switch, it turns off this antenna. And what it does is it enables a port here on the side that will allow you to plug in a cable that comes with the Dominators. And basically what happens is that cable plugs in with what looks like a mini HDMI connector. You can run the power from down low also at the same time. And then it takes you to an RCA connector. Now, when talking about the RCA connectors here, really with the Vision, we're only going to deal with the yellow. There is no sound on the Vision camera, so you're not really worried about that. And what I needed to do to use these goggles was to get the signal from coming out of one of two devices, and that is a Nexus 7 and an iPad mini. And what I used to do that was I would simply come out of these devices with a converter to HDMI on the Nexus or the HDMI on the iPad also. So with my signal coming out digital, I needed a way to get that signal to go into the Fatshark in any manner without using the RF antenna that I used for my other quadcopter. I needed to get it to RCA. And the way that I was doing that was through this little box right here. And basically what this box does, I picked it up on Amazon. I think it was 25 bucks, maybe $40, I forget. But basically this has RCA out and an HDMI in. And basically what I would do is, the iPad mini was my preference. I would come out of the iPad mini, I would come out with an HDMI cable, and I would go into this box, and then I would come out of this box and I would go into the Fatshark. And although you don't need to connect up the red and the white because again there is no sound, it would help keep the connector in there. And using this method could very easily, very quickly get video out of the iPad into the Fatshark goggles. One of the things that occurred with this that I didn't like was, because you were coming from a digital signal and you were going and converting it into an analog signal, the full width of what these goggles are capable of showing, the image that you would get would be a little squished. So it would kind of be the difference of, and not exactly, but to give you an idea of reference, you know, a 16:9 screen as opposed to a 4:3 screen on a TV. That was kind of the difference. It was kind of squished in there. It worked, it functioned, everything was fine. The only issue, and it's inherent of the Phantom Vision 2 Plus period, you do have about a half-second to second delay on the video. You're going to have that with any solution that you use. But it would come into the video, into the goggles, and you could see it pretty well. And this was kind of working for me, and I already had these goggles, and it allowed me to take these goggles, which I also used for my Q450, which I'm going to be turning into a hexcopter in the next couple of days. Would allow me to use these goggles both ways. But the image coming from the Q450 in here, much crisper, much cleaner, and wider, and just much easier to see. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't bad, it worked. I could see how many satellites I had. It was better than dealing with the glare out there. One thing about the Fatshark goggles with the eye cups, when you put them on, pitch black once you put them on. No lights getting in. They hold really good suction to your head, and they work well. So in my endeavor to try to get to better video quality with the Phantom, and by the way, with this box, if anybody decides to try this solution, this box has to be powered when you use it. And what I was doing for that was I had a just one of the batteries that you use for charging your cell phone or whatever. It's a 10,000 milliamp one. I picked it up for $23 off of Amazon. I would run power out of here and then into this box, and that's how I would power this box. So that worked out well, but that was the whole setup right there of everything that I needed to do this. With this solution, the Nexus 7 worked. I could do it, but I really preferred the image coming from the iPad, because on the Nexus 7 I had to load the APK manually, and it just didn't come through as nicely as it did coming out of the iPad, so I stayed with the iPad. Plus, when I move to the Zeiss right now, there's other issues with the Nexus 7. So with that solution working, what I transitioned to was I picked up the Zeiss. Now, when you get the Zeiss goggles, everything that comes in the kit, real quickly, you get the goggles themselves. Okay, these are the Zeiss goggles. And mind you, the Zeiss goggles are really geared for video, watching movies and so forth. The quality is 1080 on these. The quality of the video on the Fatshark is not. Now, when you're dealing with FPV cameras and FPV video, you're not dealing with 1080 anyway, but the capability of these goggles and what they can do, not what you're really going to be doing for FPV, even coming out of here, is a 1080 signal. You have the cinemizers, and they come with this little box, and this box is your battery, and on the battery you have a power button, you have a jog for the volume, because there are headphones built into the cinemizers, which you don't use on the Phantom, and if you like, they come right out. You can just unplug them and take them off of there completely. You don't have to use them at all. I keep them on there because I'm using these for other purposes. So you have a jog wheel that does the volume, and the jog wheel also is capable of changing some settings within here. You have an AV in. Now this AV in is similar to the Fatshark in. It's a mini DIN, plugs right in there, and what that does is goes to your 3 RCAs, which we're going to come back to in a minute, because I can use the Zeiss for my Q450 also with this scenario, and I'll show you how. This port is just for charging, and then you have a proprietary port. Now also what comes with the Zeiss is this little adapter, and what that does is it takes the proprietary plug and turns it into an HDMI mini. And all you do is plug that in, and now you have your HDMI. Now, one thing I will tell you that I did notice is when this HDMI connector is slid into this unit, this port becomes disabled. So you only can use the HDMI at that point. Not that you're going to use both ports at the same time, but just a little side note of something I realized. So the Zeiss comes with this. It also comes with a cable for AV, and there's the connectors on the end of it. You get an HDMI mini to a full-size HDMI adapter, okay, and you get a case, which is a nice case, but it's not the greatest, and I'll explain why in a minute. You get these are adjustable, I think, for the nose clips. You can adjust, you can change out something here to make the nose clip sit differently, and some different buds for your headphones. The way that the Zeiss stay on your head, these slide back and forth. You put them on your head and you push these forward, and then they keep the Zeiss on your pressed up against you. Now, one of the things that I read about the Zeiss before I got them was that if you were going to be doing FPV, you had to get the eye cup or the eye shield. $38. Nothing is inexpensive with the Zeiss. There's no doubt about that. And all they do is slide right on like that, and then it keeps the light out. Now, I have flown with both of these goggles, and I will tell you, the Fatshark goggles, when you put them on, it is just pitch black in there. Even in the middle of the day, you might see a little hair of a crevice of light getting in, but really, it's dark. With these, it is more difficult to get these to stay snug up against your face and keep all the light out when you're out in the sun. They are a little bit less comfortable to deal with in terms of the suction and keeping the light out, although they're just as comfortable wearing. Also, real quickly before I get too far into it, each of the Zeiss lens independently has an adjustment, and that is for your focus. So when you put these goggles on, you can make the video very clear. Now, one of the things that I did find with the Zeiss also, as opposed to the Fatshark, I had a problem with the Zeiss fogging up. Now I'm going to look into solutions with that, and I have had the issue with the Fatshark with that in the past too, but it seems to go away quicker on the Fatshark. It seemed to be more prevalent with the Zeiss, but I'm sure I can come up with something for that. And keeping them pressed against your head and keeping all the light out, you really have to put it on and crank these things down in your ear to keep it pressed up against your face to keep that light out. Where the Fatshark with the strap, it just pulls them very tight right to your head automatically, and it is just a very, it keeps the light out very well. So with this scenario, what I gained by doing this scenario over the Fatshark is my signal is going to stay digital. And what I mean is, when I come out of my iPad and I come to this adapter, or the Nexus, I tried, and I'll get to that in a second. It comes out a digital signal, HDMI. You take the HDMI, all you have to do is plug it into actually your adapter that came with the Zeiss, and you plug that in. Now you could also just get an HDMI to HDMI mini cable and take this adapter out. This is just an HDMI standard to an HDMI standard plug. You can get a different plug. This was a very light HDMI cable that I found, and this is the reason that I liked using it. But now what happens is my signal comes out of my iPad, it runs into the Zeiss, and it stays digital. There is no conversion going on with this box. What that allows is the image to come through here is just astounding, actually. It's very crisp, very vibrant, but it's also the full width. I don't lose that conversion through here where it's squeezing it down. It's the full view of what you're capable of viewing in here. You're still at the mercy of the quality of the app, and when you're working with the DJI and you are in the app, you're still going to be at the mercy of the settings for what you use when you're using the display. And where is that? Preview quality. There we go. The preview qualities that you're capable of getting right there, it's not 1080. You're still going to see the graininess, and you still get the delay. On the Phantom, one of the differences between using a signal like this that's RF, it's instant. You put a camera in there, the right kind of camera into the quad, and there is no delay, there is no lag. That video comes through as quick as it's happening. With the Phantom, even when you're just using it on an iPad or an iPhone or any device, there is about a half-second delay, 1 second delay, and you still see that into the goggles. So you're not going to be doing any hair binding, flying, through the trees like you see with the people with the Q250s or the 250 size quads and so forth. But it is awesome because now you can get into your first-person view, and you can just simply see everything that's going on very clear. You can make out your satellites, you can make out everything, all the information that you need up here, and you're not trying to deal with shades, sunshades, glare, or anything else. And it's very immersive. Now, one downside to that is something to take into consideration, and I wouldn't call it a downside, but it is a downside. When you put these on, and it doesn't matter if you're using the Fatsharks also, you can't see what's going on around you. So what I normally do is I brought the quad up into a hover, then slide the goggles down, you know, a hover GPS mode with a hold, so it just sits there, then slide the goggles down, and then move into forward flight. And that seems to work. And then when I come in for a landing, I bring it back, I bring it into a hover, and then slide the goggles off and land. You can't see what's going on around you at all. One of the manufacturers that has a solution for this is the Epson Movarios, the BT200s I think they are. Check back in about 2-3 weeks, because I have a set of those actually coming to me that I'm going to be able to do some testing with. They are goggles like this that you can actually see and look through, because they're like glasses, but then also if you focus on the inner part of it, you'll see an image on there. So they kind of have the best of both worlds in that. I don't know what the image quality is going to be on those. I don't know how well they're going to interface with everything that you have here. That will be seen, but I will follow up with another video in a few weeks and kind of lay that out on how well they work with a Vision 2 Plus. One of the other things that I ran into, just an FYI, the iPad on here works beautifully. If I just turn the iPad on, and let me get my password in here real quick, and then I turn on, I have everything plugged in, and I turn on the the Zeiss. Instantly, the image is in there, and I'm gonna slide this over, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. I'm going to do my best to try to get some kind of angle so you can see it in there. It comes up right away. Now the other thing is, when you can't see outside these goggles, if you want to do anything on your iPad, you're doing it blind, because you can't see your fingers on this iPad. So you want to get everything set. And right now I'm sitting at the end of September, coming up on October, and I'm waiting for the 7th channel to come out for the Phantom 2 Vision Plus. So right now, if I want to tilt my camera, the only way I can do it is to either set this with the tilt, so that I can tilt the camera, or I can actually use the camera control, which is on here. Now, once the 7th channel is enabled, I'll be able to do that right from the back of my radio, because what I have waiting for when they do enable the 7th channel is the 7th channel here. This will allow me to tilt, and then I'll be in much better shape. But if you want to flip to ground station, want to do anything in ground station, you're going to be lifting these goggles up. You're going to be taking away from your view. So you want to kind of plot things out before you actually go and fly. Overall, I like the solution. Now, one of the things, and I wasn't really expecting this to be able to do with the Zeiss, is not use the HDMI connector, but use the AV. And I can actually now take this and plug it in here, and then I have, for my other quadcopter, I have, in the quadcopter you have a transmitter, but here I have a receiver for a screen that I use. And I usually keep this with me flying, even though when I have the goggles on, for 2 reasons. I can run through setup stuff without the goggles on here, but if I ever have a failure in my goggles while I'm flying, for some reason, battery or something like that, I can easily pop them off and see where I'm at, and if I'm far away, I'm still going to have FPV. I'm not going to have to deal with return to home or anything like that. But now, with the cable that comes with the Zeiss, I can actually take, there's 2 channels that come out of this receiver. This is an immersion receiver, or an Uno 5800 V2 receiver. I can actually come out of here, and this is receiving the signal from my quadcopter, the Q450, just like the Fatshark does. The video can come out, and I can go right into the Zeiss. So now I can actually use the higher quality of the Zeiss to view what's going on here. And the image in the Zeiss is crisper, it's clearer, it's definitely nicer than what you get in the Fatshark, but really with the limitation of what the camera has within the quadcopter and so forth, don't expect 1080p or 1080 to be coming out of here, even though the goggles are capable of it. I did try the goggles with watching a movie. Really awesome, I must say. But I can use this solution here also. And with this quadcopter, I actually have sound so that I can listen to my prop speed while I'm flying, and I can listen to the sound right away. So it works out pretty nice. and I like the solution. One thing I would like to say is everything that I did here, I've been focusing on the iPad. I do have a Nexus 7 sitting here with an adapter that I picked up off of Amazon. It works fine with the Fatshark. I can come out, I can come through the converter, and I can see the image in here. When I try to connect this up with the Zeiss, I get a incompatible signal error. Now, when I first got the Zeiss, it was on version 1.1.6 of the firmware, and I was just getting, no signal. I upgraded to the latest version of 1.1.8, which was very easy to do. You just connect up your cable and download the firmware, and it shoots in a couple seconds. Now I get a signal not compatible from the Nexus 7, and I've been so far unable to resolve that, and I really haven't tried too hard next to the firmware upgrade for everything, because I really do like the image coming from the iPad better. So as of right now, the Nexus 7 and this adapter and all works perfectly. I know trying to spec in one of these adapters on a Google tablet is a nightmare, because everything you read, one person will say it works and it doesn't. I was lucky enough to get one that works, but it does not work with the Zeiss. So that's something that you need to take into consideration. And the other thing that I just want to cover real quickly is viewing time, and that is, it says in the manual 6 hours on an AV input, 2.5 hours on HDMI. With 2 quads flying in a day and FPVing all day, I could see exceeding that 2 hours, 2.5 hours time that you're going to get for viewing here. So my solution for that is going to be just take this battery pack that I once used with the converter, and I can easily just charge or feed power into this, and I'll be able to go all day long. So I'm going to move this over and still get a use out of this and on this side of it, and everything will piece together perfectly. Okay, and one last thing I do want to add again at the end of this, I have some Moverio BT200s coming in. They should be here second or third week in October. They're coming slow boat from Japan. And with that said, I will be adding those to this solution to see how well they work, not only with the Vision 2 Plus, but also with the Q450 once I get to that point. So I will be doing some information on that in a few weeks. So if you're interested in a goggle solution, this is pretty much covering everything except for Boss Cams and Sky Zones. I don't know anything about those. I'll be welcome to try to answer any questions anyone has to try to help them get things connected in any type of scenario, but I don't have experience with either of those goggles. And I don't plan to. I think I'm going to be covered with everything here. Another thing that I do want to add real quickly, one last thing is, these are the Dominator 1 goggles. The Dominator HDs are right now unavailable. They're a new product being released by Fatshark. They're having production issues, and their issues were they were getting, with the image around the outside of it, they had focus issues, and production was halted. I'm not sure where they sit. People have had them on back order for almost a year now. We're sitting at the end of September, almost beginning of October 2014. So there's people that have been waiting for them forever. Those goggles are going to be a lot like the Zeiss in that they are going to have an HDMI in. They, although they have HD in the name, they are not HD. The Zeiss are HD capable. Again, for FPV, I don't think that's going to be really a big deal. I don't really see people flying in HD jamming that much of a video signal down, but they're going to be like this. They're going to be white, and they're going to have an HDMI, so you will be able to then just have the RF built in and the HDMI coming in. Don't know when they're going to be available. They're going for $550 pre-order right now. And if you pre-order them right now, any place you want to order them, they make you pay for them even though you're not seeing them. When they eventually come out, I do actually have a set of those on pre-order. Don't know when I'll see them, but I'll also add those. One of the advantages that they'll have is they'll have the RF plus the HDMI in. The Zeiss, you're not, if you want to do RF, you're going to have to do it with adding another receiver or some type of receiver to get there, and you're going to, have to deal with it that way. So the two to look out for that I'll be putting information up about moving forward will be the Maverios in about 2 to 3 weeks, and then eventually the Dominator HDs, and I don't know when they'll be available, but just stay tuned. And once they do come out, and once I do get my set, I know I'm pretty far down the list, I will add the information for those and how they work. Thanks, and take care.